Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first edition of the At Home on the Road site video blog. This is the first time it's ever been a video, but it's actually been a written blog for about 3 years. It's been an outlet for me to read several books or interact with podcasts and other media and to put some thoughts together and to assemble it into like a coherent little message that I give out for people, and people have been reading it and then dialoguing back with me, and it's caused me to absolutely grow and learn. It's been a huge blessing for me, and I hope it's been a blessing for the other people out there that have interacted with it. But one of the things that people always tell me is that I'm actually probably missing out on several audience members and people who would actually be interested in the content because they're not going to read it. But they would absolutely do it on YouTube. So I'm going to try this YouTube channel, not necessarily because I need a huge audience or anything, but it would be great to diversify my conversation partners and the people who care about this stuff. One of the things that people also tell me is that sometimes it can get too intellectual, particularly in some of the discussions, but even in the written format. If I'm trying to get a concept out there, it takes a little bit of mental effort to put it all together, and people, some people will check out. And I'm going to make it my goal to make this accessible to everybody and see where it goes. One of the things people also tell me is they think that I'm too intellectual to be a pastor, and I think that's nonsense. And I don't think that's true at all. One of the things that people don't know about me probably is that I actually was once in school to get my master's in mental health, marriage and family therapy, and I'm very fascinated in helping people put their lives together and what it takes to be a spiritually whole person, a spiritually developed person, and to find life direction. And I really hope that at some point in my life that I can actually grow as a life coach, go out and do some of the school, get certified to do that, because I'm fascinated by that kind of thing. And I would never make it as just a philosopher or a hard scholar. It's just not what I'm interested in doing. But I'm going to briefly describe this blog to you. I'm not going to do the whole thing because there's already an About Me section on the written blog. It's the first thing I wrote, and it's also in the About Me section. And it got a lot of favorable reviews. It may have been the thing that people liked the most that I wrote on that blog. It wasn't my favorite. The Sons of Anarchy one is definitely my favorite thing that I wrote. But I think there's quite a bit of quality things there. But it's because it's what I'm interested in. But I recommend, if you want to know anything about this, to go read the About Me section or go to the very first entry in the At Home on the Road site blog on the WordPress site. I think you'll learn everything you need to know. I will say this right away, that I got the idea for the name of it from Rumi. He's this famous Islamic mystic that I studied back in my undergrad. I studied Islam for a couple semesters. And I love this quote that he has where he talks about if you want to go on a journey, why not go on a journey into yourself? Why not learn by journeying into yourself? Why? And I love it. Why not discover truth in yourself and the world around you? Why not go on a journey to align your life and your whole being with truth and to discover truth? I want that to be what this blog's about. Especially, I think this fits us in this COVID-19 season. You see, right now, not all of us are considered essential workers. Not all of us have anywhere to go. A lot of us are making unemployment. Maybe our vacations got canceled. And what kind of journey can we do? Why not go on a journey to become more complete people? And I think part of that is going to be from engaging with other people's perspectives and engaging with our own thought life, with our own being. And one of the things that will happen on this site is that we're going to talk about a large variety of things, and maybe that'll help you along your way. I will talk about everything, though. I'm going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about spirituality. I'm going to talk about philosophical ideas. I'm going to talk about anything that's interesting me at the time that I think people will like. clearly I'm gonna preach a sermon next time and see how that goes. I hope that you guys get a lot out of this, but I need to make a couple disclaimers real quick, and I'm going to tie it in with some of my lessons that I learned when I went to seminary. I learned two really important lessons in seminary because I pestered my professors an awful lot. I didn't need to be there. The degree that I got, the master's in theological studies, is completely unnecessary for any of the denominations that I'd like to be a leader in or I'd like to preach in. They don't require it. The only reason I did it is so that I could sit here, look you in the eye, well, kind of through the camera, look at you, knowing that I've put some thought into this, that I've tried to answer my own questions so that I could give you something that is actually at least a little bit of quality. But here's what didn't happen. I didn't become the world's greatest expert in anything. As a matter of fact, I feel like after going through all that, I'm amazed at how much I don't know and how big this whole field is. One of the things I learned about immediately from pestering professors, because I wanted to get my questions answered, was they are specialists, and you don't ask seminary professors something that steps out of their specialization. Christian academia is a lot more massive than any of us would imagine. It took me a whole semester to even realize just how broad it was. I mean, it's typically divided into 4 sections. You got Old Testament studies, you got New Testament studies, you have systematic theology, and then you have church history. Then there's like church leadership, there's counseling, and there's missiology, and probably other stuff too. What you don't do, though, is you don't ask questions that don't go into that professor's specialization. I mean, these guys aren't dumb. You know, they know some of this stuff already because a lot of them studied a broad thing when they were in their masters, and they still read other stuff. But it makes them uncomfortable. You don't ask them this stuff because they're specialists, you know. And one of the things I learned when I read Kevin Van Hoosen's book, Pastor as a Public Intellectual, Public Theologian, is that the pastor it provides a fundamental intellectual role for society because they're not specialists. The pastor is a generalist. We can pull from church history. We pull from Old Testament studies, New Testament studies, systematic theology, church leadership studies. What we can do is we can pull it all together and we create this generalist, this broad overview of how it all fits together. We can pull from sociology, we can pull from psychology, economics, whatever it is, to create this coherent message that we put out for people. And the world needs generalists, just like the world needs general practitioner doctors. You can go to your general practitioner and they can give you a script for Zoloft, for your depression. They can look at your foot. But if it gets anything specialized, they may send you to a psychiatrist. They may send you to a podiatrist because we need specialists and we need generalists. And I might be an intellectual, but that doesn't mean that I can't be a pastor. I'm here to be a generalist, and I love that idea. And lesson number 2 I had from pestering another professor that I pestered probably too much. I had a couple classes one semester with Dr. Craig Keener, and I asked him probably a question after every single class. And I loved him. I loved that he could take like my theory, he could flip it on me, he could confirm things for me, and I really felt more whole after him. Not just because of his classes, but because of the Q&A that I had with him after every single class. I took advantage of it. I paid so much money to be in those classes that I just couldn't justify not asking him those questions. And hopefully you will benefit from it. But one of the things that happened when I had his classes was I was driving to Asbury from Richmond, which is a 2-hour round trip twice a week. And I would listen to audiobooks sometimes, or I'd listen to music to calm down. But one of the things I really found that I like is the Joe Rogan podcast. I listen to it all the time. He talks to a wide variety of people about really interesting stuff, and he himself is hilarious, and it makes it entertaining. But one of the things, if you know about Joe, at all, is that he loves to talk about psychedelic drugs. He talks about the impact of LSD, DMT, mushrooms with psilocybin on the brain, and he actually goes back and he listens to this. He read this book called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross by John Marco Allegro. And by reading this book, Joe Rogan believes that we've established that hallucinogenic drugs were hugely involved with the development of early Christianity, and especially early Judaism, like Moses and the burning bush. He thinks that Moses came in contact with DMT from that bush, and that's what made him have that encounter with Yahweh in the Old Testament. And I found it intriguing. I haven't read the Dead Sea Scrolls. I can't read those languages. And to hear Joe talk about it, John Marco Allegro was the only non-Christian to read those scriptures at first and those scrolls, and he's the only one that put out this unbiased approach. And so I had to go talk to Dr. Keener about that. I asked him about it, and and he said, I've read John Marco Allegro. I'm not like afraid of him. I've actually cited him, he said. And it's not that a lot of us thought that he had these dangerous ideas that we couldn't put out there. It's that we just thought his ideas were crazy. We just totally disagreed with him. And I asked him, I said, why don't you put a video out about this? People are listening to Joe Rogan all the time, and they're hearing this stuff, and there's not a whole lot of things that deal with John Marco Allegro from an Orthodox Christian perspective on YouTube. And his answer was this. He said, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy writing my book and doing my research all the time. I mean, and here's the thing. I think he's right. Keener was working on a book that just won Christianity Today's Book of the Year on why the Gospels are ancient biographies. The Christobiography book he just wrote was huge. He doesn't have time to refute things that aren't in vogue, that have already been debunked or are not cutting edge in the world. He's a cutting edge scholar, and there's a room for us to read people like him, to interact with other people that are dealing with this stuff, and maybe make it condensable for the masses. And that's what I want to do with this blog. I want to read these people, and I want to interact with challenges to the faith or questions that I have from people out there, whether you've watched the Zeitgeist movie or you've read Joseph Campbell, or if you think Horus or Mithra shows that Christ is really just a regurgitation of an old Egyptian myth. Maybe you've read Robert Price and you think that Jesus never existed. Why we need people like me, people like other people like me, to interact with these ideas on a base level, on a medium level, so that you can see responses, because the Dr. Keeners of the world, the NT Wrights of the world, they're too busy breaking ground, and it's not their job to do this. I would love to fill that void. But ultimately what I really hope this does is I hope it creates discussion. I hope that you see this and you either disagree with it, or you like it, or you have additional thoughts about it that you want to give it to me. Maybe you're further along the road and you see this and you're like, whoa, I think Tom's missing something. And if you want to correct me, even if it's on Facebook or on the YouTube, or if you want to be super polite about it and message me on Messenger or call me, I would be thrilled. I'm actually opening an email so that you will have those of you who don't know me personally can message me. I'll put it below, and I will get back to you with enthusiasm. If you work with me, I make like 25 pots of coffee a day. If you see me there, ask me about this stuff. I will talk about this. If you see me at the grocery store, even if you don't know me and my wife doesn't need me home, I will stand in front of the vanilla wafers for 30 minutes and talk to you about whatever questions you have, because I love this stuff. I'm not ready to be a pastor or to plant a church. I'm at least a year away before even planning about it. My wife's in school. I still have areas that I want to grow in. As you can see, my office is a work in development. I'm a work in development. I will use this time to do what I love. I would do this for free for the rest of my life, and who knows, maybe I will. I want to talk to you about whatever it is that you were thinking about, whether it's related to this or not. I hope that this blog is as big of a blessing to you as I think it's going to be a blessing to me. Let's go on the road into ourselves, into truth together. And now my daughter really desperately wants to have a YouTube channel, and I don't think that she's going to get one right away, but this is an opportunity for her to really get that out of her system. So the next person you see on here should be my daughter.
I've been waiting for and I was right here trying. Make sure you subscribe to my dad's channel, and make sure you give him a huge thumbs up, and then make sure you ring the bell and shout it in the comments.